So we have Taro, we have Liquid, and another interesting sort of stablecoin idea was stablesats. And we have Arvin here from Galoy, who will tell us more about what you can do with stablesats. Arvin, please come up. Pleasure to meet you.
Hey, thanks. Nice to meet you.
All right. Stablesats by Arvin. Stage is yours.
All right, cool. All right, so today I'll be talking about this thing called stablesats that we've been building at Galoy. We've built it sort of in response to what we've seen in the market, just working with the El Salvador community and with the Bitcoin Beach wallet. It's been a team effort, so a lot of people have been involved in different parts of the project. I'm going to give a perspective sort of working from the application and having to use stablesats, which is now a separate module in the application to be able to expose a USD balance to end users in the Bitcoin Beach wallet. So what I'll be covering today is why we came upon the need, how we kind of came to this need to build stablesats, what we eventually built, because I feel like we've kind of put it out there, but we haven't really explained the internals of how it's actually put together, and it's because we're still kind of actively building it. It's just coming together now. And then after that, I'll sort of look at some ideas on how you can remix it, because it is open source. It's a separate module, and you can use it for different things. And I'll kind of throw out some things on like what we've been seeing and also what we think could be interesting. So I guess to start, let's talk about the problem. What's the problem that we saw that led us to sort of look at stablesats? So you have a typical transaction here. You have a vendor, in this case a pupusa vendor, that wants to accept a payment. They accept Bitcoin, but their unit of account is still US dollars. So in this case, the medium of exchange is Bitcoin. So somebody coming up to them, they have a Bitcoin wallet, they want to pay them. There's a bit of a friction in, okay, I have sats, you have dollars, I send you sats, you receive sats, but you want dollars. It's a bit of an issue when people sort of use Bitcoin as this sort of thing to live their daily life with. They have short-term, medium-term liabilities. They have bills to pay, they have employees to pay, they have costs to cover, and those costs are denominated in USD. So they don't always have the luxury of being able to weather the volatility of Bitcoin. So this is sort of where that need came from, and we saw this and we sort of workshop, okay, how do we create a mechanism that gives you the stability, kind of is able to peg to like a USD stable value, but still be natively Bitcoin, still be able to speak, interoperate completely natively with the Lightning Network, with on-chain transactions, all that sort of thing. So when we were looking at our options, looking at different ways to hedge Bitcoin, if you have a Bitcoin balance and you want to hedge it, what can you do? So you see you'd see people, a simple way to do it is just to sell the Bitcoin. I get Bitcoin, I sell it, I put it in a bank account or something. When I need it, I buy it back and I send it as Bitcoin. And I think this is similar to maybe what you would see in like the Strike model or something like that. So you actually sell the Bitcoin, you take custody of a different asset, in this case USD. It might be USD in a bank account, it might be like a stable coin like USDT. Or you could hedge the Bitcoin. So you keep your Bitcoin balance and then you go and you get a derivative from somewhere. You get like some sort of a swap or derivative contract, maybe on a centralized exchange, we use OKCoin, there's a few out there. Or if you wanted to do it in a more decentralized way, there's discrete log contracts, DLCs, where you can enter into these sort of multi-party contracts where you swap an asset and you have, I guess, stronger guarantees in terms of how custody is handled and stuff. So looking at these options, evaluating it, I think what we sort of we came across this article as well. And this is an article by Arthur Hayes all the way back in 2015, talking about the inverse perpetual swap, which is an instrument that you can use that sort of lets you take a short position on Bitcoin. So if you have Bitcoin, you're long Bitcoin, and you take this short position on an exchange, like the net of it is a stable balance. If the value of the Bitcoin goes up, your short goes down, vice versa. So the net of it is a stable balance. So we looked at this, we thought this was attractive, and like we evaluated it against the other options in terms of cost of the actual hedge and compliance risk, regulatory risk, access to banking, all these different things, and we thought it was like an attractive thing. So that's what we went forward with. So now that we kind of we decided, hey, okay, we want to implement this thing. How do we put it into the Bitcoin Beach wallet? If you think about it, okay, how do I implement a hedge? All I need to do is, get some Bitcoin, maybe go and buy enter like a perpetual swap on an exchange, maybe account for it a bit, and then boom, you have a stable thing. So yeah, that's what we started with. We started implementing it directly into the application, and you quickly realize there's a lot more things than just that. So in developing this feature, we came across like, okay, we have to implement pricing and quoting for like the app to talk to the exchange. We have to track liabilities of users and make sure like our hedged liabilities are always covered. We have to, like if you have to do a hedge for each transaction, if you have to enter into a contract and exit a contract, it gets expensive really quickly. If we have to handle optionality, say for example, you have to create a Lightning invoice and somebody isn't going to pay it for 5 minutes. There's 5 minutes where they effectively have a call option. So how do you handle that risk? And even things like being able to switch your hedging source pretty seamlessly. Let's say, for example, we're using OKX today, and we decide that, okay, another exchange comes along that maybe has better liquidity or better fees or a different sort of compliance mix or something. It's maybe less burdensome or something. Maybe we want to do that. So like, all these, we came across all this complexity that we had to sort of engineer for and account for. And these all together is what ended up being stablesats. So, wow, okay, that's really far forward. That was a sneak preview there. So yeah, these all together kind of came together into stablesats, and stablesats is a rewrite of like what we implemented in the application. It was us taking all the different pieces out of the application and putting it into its own separate Rust module that speaks to the application, but is standalone in itself. So all the things I spoke about before are kind of accounted for in stablesats. So yeah, I can just show you like this is sort of stablesats. It's a high-level representation of how it actually works, and I'll cover the different pieces in more detail in a bit. But what we're looking at is we have the stablesats module in the middle, and you have a user on one side, and you have maybe it's an exchange. It could be any hedging source, but that's on the other side. And this is sort of how stablesats interacts with these two parties. So at a high level, so you have stablesats, and what you want to think of is in that middle diagram there, you have quoting, hedging, well, quoting plus accounting, hedging, and then a wallet under it, right? So if we looked at quoting and accounting, so what happens here is the user comes to stablesats, they have some Bitcoin, they want to hedge it. They call stablesats and they say, hey, I want to hedge maybe 1,000 sats, maybe 10,000 sats or something. Can you please give me a quote for that? Stablesats goes, like it has its own internal, it's tracking prices, it's tracking like the price of the instrument it's using. So like we resolve it, I think, every few seconds. So based on that, it gives the user a quote for how much it would cost, like those 10,000 sats that they want to hedge, like what's the USD equivalent value of it. And the user can choose to accept that quote or not. If they accept the quote, stablesats then writes it into its accounts, and it becomes a liability. So the USD liability has increased. It's taken on some Bitcoin. So you have the quoting and accounting. It tracks these USD liabilities, and then that target liability arrow in the middle, the quoting and accounting module pretty much publishes a target liability to the hedging module. The hedging module is inside of stablesats as well. And the hedging module's job is to make sure that whatever liability it has on the exchange or on whatever hedging mechanism it's using, to make sure that that's in line with the target liability that the internal accounting is posting to it. So let's say, for example, somebody buys like $10 or $100 worth of USD, they hedge it, so they put Bitcoin into the system to hedge $100. The liability, USD liability in the system goes up by $100. The hedge looks at it, it says, hey, I have $100 less on the exchange. I need to do a call to the exchange to get more contracts to increase the amount of USD I have hedged on the exchange. So that's hedging. And then separate from this is implemented as an interface. It's not in stablesats itself, but there's a wallet module that you sort of attach to it, and this wallet is in charge of settling up between the user and the exchange. So whenever the price moves, you make money or you lose money on the hedge, you sort of move those sats back to the user when they want to close positions, and that's what gives them their end of day sort of net neutral position. So those are the three sort of important modules you want to think about when you're looking at stablesats. So, I mean, I'll just go through a quick example here. Let's say, like a lot of us will be going to El Zonte in a few days. Let's say you go to Mama Rosa and you want to buy something, some pupusas or something. She has a Bitcoin Beach wallet. She's able to, from inside the app, create a USD invoice. It's a Lightning invoice. If you scan it and look at it, it is denominated in Lightning. But what's happening behind the scenes is that when she creates that invoice, let's say she creates it for $5, the app asks stablesats for a quote. It says, hey, I want to get $5 of stablesats. How much sats should I request for it? And it gets back the quote, and the quote tells it like what's the exchange, and it's able to create that Lightning invoice with the sats amount and present it to the user. So that's the app talking to stablesats. And then when the user pays that invoice, it's like you accept the quote. And that's when stablesats actually gets the message saying, hey, okay, we accept this quote, you can add it to your accounting, increase the liability, this amount is now hedged. And then the reverse happens. So I put Collider here as an example. Because the hedge part of it is interchangeable, you can put any exchange in there that offers these contracts that you can use. And right now, there's a boat fund project, a guy called Stefan that is implementing this. So it's going to be really interesting to see that in action. But so this is how a hedge works sort of end to end with the Bitcoin Beach wallet as an example. Right, so now that we kind of know how stablesats works, I think it would be interesting to kind of look at what's possible with it, because we've sort of done the first application of it where we put it into the Bitcoin Beach wallet and we're using it to do USD sats, let's say. We're hedging against USD. And if somebody else wanted to use this, they would pretty much do the same thing that we did, take the stablesats module, put it into their application. They'd be able to connect it, those three interfaces that I was talking about, to connect it to the quoting module, so you can speak to the stablesat system. Bring a hedge on the other side, so you connect the hedge module and attach a wallet to it, so you can write a wallet against an interface or something, or use something that exists already. And that's how you kind of embed stablesats into your system. So if you, let's say for example, you're also a community wallet or a Bitcoin wallet or something, and you want to offer some sort of a stable representation of Bitcoin, you could do this. If you're like a Fediment community bank, for example, you could also do this. You could be taking Bitcoin deposits, hedging it with stablesats, and then minting a USD token or something. So that's sort of the use case that we've tested and we know, like we use right now, right? But that's just a USD use case. Like, what else can you do with it? So one example we saw in our Mattermost like a week or two ago, a guy called Mish BX, I think. He's been writing, he or she or they, I'm not very sure, it's a nim. They've been writing sketching out the idea of if you had to do a non-custodial quoting service, like if I have a wallet, if I'm using like Moon or Phoenix or something, and I want to be able to enter into like some sort of a swap where I can stabilize some of my sats. How would that look like? How would that work? Maybe it's that you put stablesats in again, like together with some sort of a Taro or RGB contract or something that's able to do like some sort of a 2 of 2 lock. Maybe I don't know, it's just speculating, but the mechanism is there for doing something like that. Or maybe it's maybe you want to explore hedging, other currencies and commodities. Maybe you want to do like other, maybe you want to do euros or yen or something. Maybe you want to do like gold. Maybe you want to hedge corn for some reason. I don't know. But you can attach any hedge on the other side of it. Once you can find a market for Bitcoin and that asset, and you can create a hedge for it, you can attach it. And even if there isn't like a direct market, say for Bitcoin and something that's esoteric, you can even do like something we've been looking at is you can do like Bitcoin to something that's common, maybe USD, and then do like USD to that asset. So you can construct these hedges outside of stablesats, and then you're just feeding stablesats a very basic interface, which is to increase the liability or decrease the liability. So maybe that's an option. Maybe you can do something like, I don't know, an insurance service. Insurance companies, and when they're doing risk management, sometimes they have to deal with different durations on different sorts of, I don't know, instruments or commodities or whatever. Maybe you have multiple stablesats instances running. Maybe you have something that's tracking a 3-month duration, a 6-month duration, or whatever, and you're constructing this sort of hedged risk profile. Maybe that's something that's possible. Maybe even, so we saw Leo talk about Taro just now, and these interchange routing nodes that would need to sort of exchange between sats and whatever token it is they're routing. If they're routing something that's USD denominated and they don't want to be exposed to that sort of shifting balance of assets, maybe they can use this so that they can maintain a sort of a stable balance as they're routing. So yeah, we don't know. Like we've sort of built it for our USD use case, but we've built it in a way where it's very modular. You can integrate lots of different things with it. And I guess, yeah, like what can you do with this? I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like, we're super interested to see what people take it forward with and do with it. So it's available on GitHub at Galoy Money /stablesats_rs. It's written in Rust. It's still under very active development. We encourage people to come in, fork the code, play with it, use the binaries, drop it in somewhere, maybe try it out. We also encourage people to sort of write your interfaces against it. If you wanna, say, for example, see what stablesats looks like with a DLC or something, there's interchangeable modules there where you can write against an interface. And I mean, like right now we have someone implementing the Collider one, so that's a good example of how that can work. But yeah, we just encourage people to go and check it out, play with it, and yeah, we have these stickers available at the Galoy booth as well. So he looks pretty comfortable there. Yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I guess we have time for questions.
Yeah.
Any questions coming there? In the third round, the gentleman over here, and John's also. Okay.
Yes. Hi, thank you. I've had a little experience with the hedging of Bitcoin and several exchanges, but can you please clarify or repeat, how do you hedge the sats? For example, on some exchanges, the minimum you can hedge is like 0.001 Bitcoin. So you want to hedge $5, $1, kind of that. It's very difficult. At least you have to have like a batch of transactions.
Yeah.
But that's not efficient. I don't know. How do you manage to?
Yeah. So that's actually a really good question. That was one of the early things that we came up on, like the complexity I was talking about. But what we do in our system is we sort of we don't track individual transactions. We track aggregate liability. So as people, for every transaction that happens in the system, it would change the total liability you have. So let's say there's 5 people here right now. 2 people send $10 and 2 people receive $10, and then 1 person receives $100. The net of that is just $100 up. So you have 5 transactions, but your liability has only increased by $100. And what we do is we set so like I think our increment is, I think it's $100. I think it's $100, yeah. But we use an increment where we would constantly be looking at our balance, and once it goes outside that band, we would adjust the hedge to kind of get it back inside the band. So it's aggregating multiple transactions against an aggregate sort of liability, and then having that increment, that threshold, past which, like, we're okay if it sort of fluctuates inside of there, but if the liability goes either above or below that increment, $100 increment, we would then go to the exchange and adjust the hedge to sort of fall in there. Yeah.
Hey, great presentation. Stable sats are cool and everything, but I would love to know about super stats.
About?
Super stats.
Super sats.
Yeah,
What
you
are
tweeted about
super
it. You
sats?
tweeted about it.
Yeah, that was a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it was pretty much who put John's here? I don't even. Yeah, so it's a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it was pretty much if you can use hedges to sort of have a straight line, why can't you use hedges to have like a line that goes up and then just never goes down? So, oh, the other one, and then so that's super sats, and then now he's asking about silly sats. So it's like if you have the line just go down but never go up. I don't know why anybody would do that, but it's kind of like constructing, you know, you have these different strategies. You have like a long put option strategy and a whatever strategy, and you have these spreads you can construct. We just construct a very stable spread, but if somebody constructed a weird spread, I mean, technically they could feed that into the hedge. I don't know why you would, but yeah. Thanks for that question, Johns.
All right, quick question. Can you talk a little bit about the back end of the hedging, like what exchanges you guys maybe are using or this technology with right now, and how you maybe think about the, let's say, the exchange risk? I mean, we're obviously in the middle of a crisis of the sorts, and maybe follow up with what other sources you guys are considering. Like, for example, could you plug this into a peer-to-peer market? Like the ones we see on Binance or we've had, you know, in Bitcoin for a long time?
Yeah. So right now we use OKX, and we're using the inverse perpetual swap on there. So that's, I believe that's a pretty liquid market, a pretty deep market. The risk for us would be, so I believe we use, we don't do one, I think we do like 2x leverage or something. So it's that you have a pretty wide band within which we can fluctuate. And the reason we do that is that you're more capital efficient on the exchange. You don't need to send the entire Bitcoin amount to the exchange because there's custodial risk. So we're managing custodial risk as well against the price fluctuation risk. So that's one component. And then I guess within the exchange itself, you're looking at, aside from custodial risk, you're also looking at market depth. So you're looking at if there's enough volume for you to be able to execute a trade when you need to execute it. Because if it is that your system is trying to hedge some ridiculous amount of money, somebody, I don't know, traded 50 Bitcoin or something, you go to the exchange, there isn't liquidity for that, then you're exposed because you've made that promise on this side already and you need to hedge it somewhere. So yeah, our consideration is we look for deep markets, and with the recent stuff, we actually did see some interesting things where like as FTX dropped off, like the order books got a lot thinner, and we had to do some things to sort of manage that whole thing, like just the way we do orders and stuff, just to make sure we're not like seeing any slippage or anything like that. But yeah, it's pretty much liquidity is the biggest thing for like our application specifically. It's being able to make sure that once you need to enter this hedge, the liquidity is there that you can execute the hedge, so you're not exposed at any point in time.
Okay, and could you plug it into like a peer-to-peer market?
We haven't tried that one yet. It is possible, like you can bring anything. Once you can construct the hedge, you can bring any market to stablesats. We haven't really tried that, so we don't have any like operational experience with that. I guess Collider is the next exchange that's coming on, and they're not really peer-to-peer. It's still a centralized exchange. But I mean, yeah, I mean, it's open source. It's there. If somebody wanted to mess with DLCs or something and write an interface against it and try it out, I would say go for it. Yeah.
Okay, Gerson, you have a question?
How you doing? Actually, I think you actually sort of answered my question in your answer to the last one, but because you mentioned, I guess, deep liquidity is what's necessary in order for this to work. I was curious about the possibility of, so in the mining space, there's a new product that's being developed called a non-deliverable forward, a hash price non-deliverable forward, which allows a Bitcoin miner to hedge their exposure to hash price, right?
Yeah.
But of course we do this against dollars. So I wonder, but again, you kind of answered it. For the moment, it's a very thin over-the-counter market, but I wonder, in theory, is this something that could also be done on stablesats?
If it's a deep market, so you're saying there's a deep market against that instrument in USD?
Well, no, I'm actually saying there isn't yet because
Okay.
it's such an I guess a new product. Luxor Technologies is developing it. So maybe that's one of the challenges for now, right?
The market has to exist. Like for us to hedge, the market has to exist. We can't hedge into a market that doesn't exist.
Got it.
So
but I would say that that's probably a really attractive thing for, generally speaking, for the mining industry as a whole, as that market for hash price NDFs grows a bit, right?
Yeah, and the strategy I mentioned as well, where you can bridge liquidity. So if there isn't a, like for that contract and Bitcoin, there isn't a direct sort of trading pair,
Yep.
but there is a trading pair to USD, and
Yep.
there's a pair from USD to Sats, then you can also bridge across it.
Love that. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Hello? Oh, okay. Perfect.
Right.
Arvin, I think there was one more question, but maybe you can do this directly later.
All right, cool.
We will do a little unconference thing. Arvin, thank you so much.
Right,
Little
thanks.
applause, please, for this.